Quicker than a railway, moves like you heard on the decks. Glover hold the court, give the chief no suspect. Politics in the mix, like Gumbo Stewart Rich. Spinning tales from Black Wall Street, real life's the pitch. Doni Glover Show, read more news. Doni Glover Show, read more news.
Welcome to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. How you doing, man?
Man, feeling well, man.
What's your name?
My name is Candid.
And you a legend?
I'm a legend.
You're a legend here in Baltimore City. Where we at right now?
We live in the 17 Pennsylvania Avenue. The legendary Pennsylvania Avenue.
Man, the last time I saw you here, you were doing something just across the street here. What were you doing?
Oh yeah, I had some food left over from an event. We brung it out and fed a couple of people, man.
Why you do that?
Nice soul food.
Why you do that?
Man, the love that God has shown me in Christ, man, it overflows. That's how it overflows.
That's right.
We got more than we can use. We got more than we can handle ourselves and try to let it flow. Let it go to the next place.
Yeah. We're proud of you, man.
Thank you.
And we're proud of your son.
Thank you.
You're watching BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.
Business tips hotter than lava. Got that Midas touch. Stocks and blocks teaching youngins how to clutch. Ears to the concrete, finger on the pulse, dropping wisdom like Hova. Each word a joke. Doni Glover Show, be more news. 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 Walls painted black, history on lock. Blast off from Tulsa, rebirth like a clock. Markets rising from ashes to gains. Doni the narrator, truth runs in veins. Doni Glover Show, be more news. Doni Glover Show, be more news. Doni Glover Show, be more news. Doni Glover Show, be more news.
First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. Mr. Bob, how you doing?
Hey, fair to million for an old man, you know that.
Ain't seen you in a month of Sundays.
I've been here every day by grace.
All right, Mr. Bob. So what have you been up to?
I've been trying to figure this place out. I've been trying to look at what has transpired historically, to read about it, to learn as much as I can about it, to figure out where we made the wrong turn as a people, and more importantly, or as importantly, what direction we ought to be moving in now. And I've been reviewing. Of course, you cannot, if you're anybody other than maybe Ray Charles, you cannot go from one day to the other without seeing and recognizing the tremendous harm that is being done almost minute by minute by the person occupying the building we call the White House.
Mr. Bob, do you have any Indians in your family?
None that I know of. But it wouldn't surprise me. And unfortunately, you know, the generations in my family who would know that have all passed on, and they did so without transferring whatever they knew to me.
Okay. Have you ever been presented information that signified that you had a history of slavery in your family?
Oh, yes. Yes. In fact, the woman that I call my grandmother and the man that I recognize as my grandfather met in a communal setting, in a slave house, so to speak, where it was just like what we might think of today as a dormitory, where they were maintained all under one roof, and that's how her and my grandfather met. That's how one of her sisters and her husband met, and that's yes. So the answer to that is definitely yes.
So, do you have any definitive proof that you had slavery in your family?
I've never looked for such. I've never looked for such, and I don't recognize it to be a obligation that I have. I mean, in law we are guided by a thing called the preponderance of evidence,
Okay.
and in addition to that, slavery was not an individual issue; it was a class issue. So you didn't, in other words, they didn't declare slaves one by one, they declared slaves all at once. So that this notion that in order to prove the legacy of slavery, you have to be able to specifically prove that a member of your family was a slave is a red herring. That's nothing more than another obstacle placed in the pathway of restitution.
Okay. But what I'm getting to is there any definitive proof that you have that your family was not already in the Americas when the Europeans?
Oh, I don't know. No, I have none. And again, much of our history, as it is being done today, was erased intentionally by those in power, so that we wouldn't be able to trace our genealogy. And so, if ever there was any recorded history, it doesn't exist now.
That
I have
you
I have none that I know of. Correct, that I know of.
would you doubt that there was something going on in these Americas, say in 1300, 1200, 1100?
Oh, not only would I not doubt it, but there is certainly evidence that there were people living here long before this place was known as America. So, and certainly there's more than ample evidence that the what had been the traditional teaching of discovery by Columbus was a complete fabrication.
Because we know that he didn't discover anything, that he had black tour guides. But I got to share something else with you, Mr. Bob.
Yeah.
Columbus discovered America in 14. Okay, forgive me.
He never stepped foot in any of the land known as North America.
Columbus told his lie around 1492.
Okay.
All right. Now, Columbus went over there and hustled for King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Right?
So it is told.
Well, he represented Spain and Portugal.
Right.
And what I'm getting to is, do we know what was going on in Spain just prior to 1492? This is a beautiful question. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
We never ask, how did the transatlantic slave trade kick off? So one is the Spanish and the Portuguese were over here probably before the British, because they were down in South America.
Right. Right.
Brazil is loaded with Portuguese. If there are 40 million black people in America, there are at least 100 million black people in Brazil.
The largest population in this continent. Correct.
Largest population of Africans outside of Africa.
Right. Correct.
So, and then, I recently learned that the oldest bones in Brazil are that of a black woman.
Okay.
They go back 14,000 years, 12 to 14,000 years, around the same amount of time as the Indians that came to America through the Bering Strait.
Okay.
Now, most black people in America, the strongest, do you know where the strongest numbers of black people are? Northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. Where do you think?
Today,
Historically.
historically, I would have said in the South.
Damn
And
right. Southeast Florida,
correct.
Georgia in particular. Georgia got a lot of black people. Georgia got a lot of dark-skinned black people.
Yeah.
I mean, they got kind of black people like, damn, you ain't had no white people in your family.
I don't think so.
You see some real dark-skinned black people, you like, they ain't got no white people in it. You never met some black people that tell you like, ain't no white people in that lineage, bro.
No. And probably not even any.
It's like there's no cream in that coffee.
It's cream in the coffee I'm drinking.
Well, the transatlantic slave trade kicked off just as the last Moors were chased out of Spain.
Okay.
That's all I'm getting to. And where did they go? They've been dominating Spain and Portugal for 800 years. These white folks that finally chased the last darky out of town. Now, mind you, them darkies taught them how to wash. Because back then they were sleeping with farm animals.
and Don, I suspect, and again, I don't know. I suspect that it wasn't just a matter of chasing the Moors or the ancestors. I mean, the successors to the Moors out of Spain or Portugal. But as these transatlantic trips were planned, they didn't want to send people who were important to their own communities. They didn't want to send the cream of the crop. They sent people from the prisons. They sent people, the lowest echelon of the social order were the ones, because they didn't know that they would ever see them again. And so
like the white people I see down here in Sandtown buying dope.
Yeah. So it's not hard to believe. In fact, it's only logical that the people that they would send to man the ships and eventually to occupy the holds of the ships were the least desirable of within their population. And you know, it is the height of hypocrisy. Something that happened very recently. I don't know if you read about it, but the Minority Business Development Agency, which was a unit within the Federal Department of Commerce that Trump was that Dodge was going to get rid of, that the Minority Business Development Agency has now recognized and added Jewish people within the definition of a minority. So the hypocrisy, the height of hypocrisy is the people who, if they weren't the first to embark in the transatlantic slave trade, they certainly, from Portugal and Spain, they certainly were the management entity. And once here, they managed the economic system that was created as a result of the use of slaves. Now, in other words, the slave master is now considered, at least at the federal level, one of the slaves for the purpose of being eligible for federal financial assistance through that agency. I mean, if this world hasn't turned upside, if Trump hasn't turned this world upside down and shaken all the goodness out of it, I don't know how else he could do it.
Does this mean that white people cooking their own food now?
Did they ever?
I don't know, because I'm seeing all of these social media channels, all these white people who are real good. They got the best recipes, and I'm like, hold up, why weren't you cooking your own food back then?
Because there were no Giants and Safeways and American stores and Acme's and all of that. You had to know how to go out in the woods and the fields and take what was there and make something out of it. And they didn't have that skill set. They didn't know how to create their own food.
So they come here, the Indians teach them how to plant corn.
Yeah.
And they repay the Indians with blankets with smallpox.
Or fire water.
Oh, the alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. And what somebody said something the other day. I don't know whether it's true, but the Indians used to have a saying: you couldn't trust a white man after sundown. I don't know whether that's true or not. There are many colloquialisms that exist today that whether they were handed down or created for the purpose of embellishing your delivery, I don't really know. But we know enough. We know enough to draw a conclusion based upon, as I said before, the preponderance of the evidence.
Okay, well, what's going on with Africa? How come the European has been able to go to Africa, carve up every country except Ethiopia, take their natural resources, make the people speak their language? Now, what happened to black people in America? We got kidnapped, dragged across the water, and then misindoctrinated. But what do you say to the African who allows this European to come in, give his brother crack, give his other brother dope, have them two fighting each other, and then give him this white Jesus, and the African looks up and all of his cobalt, platinum, magnesium, bauxite is going to develop Europe, and these people can't even get a Happy Meal.
Well, prior to being contaminated by this economic system, which we refer to as capitalism, the people of the continent, indeed the people of the rest of the world, lived in accordance with biblical teaching. In other words, they consumed only so much as they needed to support themselves and their families. The idea of creating a profit as such, and particularly profit off of the work and the contributions of other people, or conquering other people for the purpose of utilizing them in a system to create profit, was completely foreign to indigenous people. And so they were unsuspecting when the invaders came. That were those who resisted, by the way. And much of the resistance, again, has been erased from history, because the history, as we've been taught, will lead you to believe that they were all welcomed. They were welcome to get into an area where the animals could be controlled by fictional character called Tarzan, who lived in trees and swung through vines and could make all the animals stop on a command by whatever. But indeed, once the realization came that the invaders did not come to aid and assist, or even just to extract what they needed, but indeed to exploit, colonize, and take whatever they wanted in indeterminate amounts, there was considerable resistance. But that resistance is also erased from history, because history would have you say that they were accepted either passively or certainly with open arms, as seen as saving the so-called savages from the evils that awaited them in their own native lands. So it's not that they were able to conquer, because the indigenous people just could not imagine the degree of evil. It was unimaginable, it was unfathomable that there were other human beings who could actually who had as their mission and their plan to do exactly what they did, and by the time they realized the error of their assumption, it was too late.
So when are we going to revise history? Like as soon as Trump is bumped, when are we going to have this massive influx of not only the books that were in America's library, but a reflooding, so that we can open up not just young black minds, but young white minds? Because it's got to be a terrible thing. I guess white people kind of feel like I did when I found out it wasn't no Santa Claus. When they found out that their father was black, they kind of feel like somebody robbed them of Santa Claus too, don't they? Like, all this time you've been telling me Mr. Bob ain't my daddy, and all along he been my daddy.
Well, what you're saying is
to hate Mr. Bob all your life, but then you find out this chocolate man is your father.
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
other people had lied to you
Well,
and made you follow a white Jesus that
yeah.
don't look nothing like Mr. Bob.
Well, you're right. There is a significant degree of unlearning that has to take place before truth can be embedded. We have, just like many everything else, our minds and souls have been contaminated and filled with untruth, with disinformation. And you're right that it takes time. That's why one of the sayings that I've heard is that it's easier to raise a, a young boy than it is something to fix a broken
Fix a
man.
broken adult,
So
yeah.
so at the same so we have a dual mission at the same time that we try to have within our people to unlearn. I'm convinced that even though our capacity to learn may be unlimited, our capacity to restore isn't. So before we got to make room for the truth. So you got to erase all the nonsense first. But you don't have to do that if you start teaching from the outset. You don't have to do that. You don't have to take that step if you start teaching the minute that of conception or the minute from birth on. So that there are those of us who have the time and the patience to try to deal with the adults who and understand that it's a process and a time involved with unlearning, and there are those who are more suited to start at the very beginning. They're not inconsistent. They're not mutually exclusive. They're just different parts of the different parts of the same body.
I was watching a video yesterday of Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar and Chris Brown had a spiritual song, like almost like a Christian song.
Mm.
And Kendrick Lamar is one of the most talented writers and rappers that I have ever heard. But for the life of me, I could not understand how in this video he had at least 3 or 4 images of a white Jesus. And I'm like, Kendrick, it started, one of the images was the white Jesus down in Brazil. You know, the one that's over top of
Yeah,
Rio de
yeah,
Janeiro.
yeah.
But I just couldn't. It's like he found the whitest Jesuses he could find. And it's like, come on, Kendrick. I know you know, one, that Jesus is black. And although we don't have a lot of white people celebrating black Jesus here in America, we know that people know elsewhere that Jesus was black. Like the Pope, he goes to the shrine of the Black Madonna. And you know, it says right there, shrine of the Black Madonna.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, who is the Black Madonna? It's Mary, you nitwit.
Right, right, right,
We're
right.
in denial that we're even the parent.
Yeah.
We have
And
let our grandchildren hoodwink us into telling us, into us believing some fake history that everybody knows wasn't true. Michelangelo was painting his cousin.
yeah. Well, Donnie, we got to be very careful here because we can't fall into the trap of declaring our blackness based solely upon skin color. Because you and I know that there's some people who are darker than me, they're as white as snow in their hearts and in their souls. So what when we say black, when we in a historical context, since we don't know their minds or souls, or at least we haven't been told, we got to be careful to say that they're black in the sense that that was the color of their skin versus some other color. Because and that's why we are admonished. We can tell because real black people biblically never do one thing. They never take up the ways of the oppressor. We're told not to do that in the book of Proverbs. They adopt none of the ways of the oppressor. So when I see a dark-skinned person acting just like a white person, then they are a white person in the most important part of their anatomy, which is their heart and soul. Skin is just a covering. That's all it's a cover. You can't judge a book by its cover.
I'm scared to ask you this next question. Tell me the damn truth. Was Barack Obama for black people?
Only insofar
Damn,
as
damn. You know, the next, you know, if you were standing on the corner of 125th Street and you just say, hey, Tech, we'd have missed that cab.
well, because I didn't want to give an easy answer, because easy answers aren't always the truth, and sometimes we want easy answers because we don't want to take time to find out the truth, and I want to disabuse that notion. I want to discourage that. Did he do some things that ultimately were intended to benefit black folk? Yes. Was he any different than any other politician whose primary objective was to retain his power and authority? The answer is no. And has the ultimate goal of any politician, most politicians, been to primarily and first advance the interests of black people? The answer is no. So 2 out of 3 he loses.
Is Westmore the next Barack Obama?
I think there are a lot of Barack Obamas around. In fact, I would submit that most dark-skinned people who hold elective office within this country are Barack Obamas.
Does Hakeem Jeffries fit that mold?
Oh, absolutely. The difference here is he knows how to rhyme. The only elected official the elected official comes to mind first, and I'm sure there's scores of others. Again, we don't know about them because we don't control the communications, and the drum beat, the drums have been silenced. But I think of Jasmine Crockett, and
Oh,
there
you
ain't no.
like because she's pretty.
Now I remember because she got more. She's more fortified testicularly than most people who call themselves men. Uh, but there are very few of her that I know of. Although again, I'm sure one the most effective way of keeping people in bondage is teaching them that they can't free themselves. That's the most effective way, because then you can go to sleep. You don't have to you don't have to have guards. You don't have to have chains. You don't have to have, because they ain't gonna try to escape. As Harriet Tubman said, I could have freed more of them if they'd known they were slaves. So so and that's that is always most effective. You can have, once you've taught the dog not to leave the yard, you can have an invisible fence. And it doesn't even have to be electronically charged.
Is
Because
there any,
people, go ahead. Because people, Donnie, and I didn't make this up, people are sheep. There's a reason why God referred to people as sheep. Not just because they're going to nah or have wool, but because they're animals that are easily led. Easily led. Uh, and you have to be taught to learn the difference between the real shepherd and the wolf in sheep's clothing.
3 generations of women in the Maryland penal system?
Mm.
What do we make of that? A grandmother, a mother, and a daughter. 3 generations in the Maryland penal system right now.
You covet what you see. Hannibal Lecter told you that in Silence of the Lambs. When I can appear, people say, well, can you come talk to this group of young kids? And so I can do that. But when I leave, they're going to covet what they see. They're going to look at the adults who are closest to them, and that's who they're either going to model themselves as intentionally or become like, because of the pressure of the environment that they reside in. I'm not surprised by that. And if nothing changes, there'll be a fourth or fifth generation. If nothing changes, there'll be a fourth or fifth generation. You know that is primarily the problem. That's why we lost at least one or two of the generations of our youth, because what we try to teach them is not what they see. Then we try to teach them that if you work hard, you can make it, that you can succeed, you can live comfortably. But they look at their parents and they look at the neighbors and they look around and they see them working 2 or 3 jobs. and still stressed out. They working to see them working 2 or 3 jobs and still barely making it. So they say they look at the ones who graduated from college and they're working at the post office. So they say, hey, wait a minute, there's a disconnect here. Let me find the truth. And the truth for them sometimes appears on a day-to-day basis. So when they see the drug dealer on the corner or whatever it is, today he's my truth. Because one, he's something that I can see, and two, there's something that I can believe that I can achieve. And something that I desire to he represents something that I desire to have. So the kids aren't going to be persuaded. The kids in East Baltimore are not going to be persuaded by me coming in from the county talking about what it means to be a lawyer when they watch their own parents grow up every day. And it shouldn't make a difference what their occupation is, as long as they work hard, they ought to be able to make it. Well, they see that ain't true. That the kids today have access to information, true or false, that we didn't have. There was no internet when I grew up, or you grew up, for that matter, I suspect. So they have not only they have access to many sources of either information or disinformation, and they are provided, they're allowed to access that before they're taught discernment. They're allowed to access these channels of information or not before they're taught that the most important thing is you have to vet the source. You can't believe, just like you can't believe everything you see on TV, you can't believe everything you read on Google or Siri or any of those things. But we let them loose in the jungle without giving them a map or telling them what trees are poisonous and what trees are edible, what fruit is good and what fruit will kill you. And so they pick and choose, they fend for themselves. And so I don't blame them because they haven't been taught. And we don't have grandmas like you and I had. The modern day grandma.
Grandma got a tattoo on her breast now. Coming to the elementary school, embarrassing her grandkids. They're like,
yes,
oh, grandma, go back home.
Yeah. And either there or she's down at Maryland Live.
And then the hookers don't know what to wear. They don't know what to buy in store.
Because they can't go completely bareless because they got to sell something. Right. So yeah, you're right. We got young girls competing with people, with professionals.
And young girls competing with 60-year-olds.
Yeah. Your
grandmother dressed like a grandma. She had what we call the house coat.
She had a house coat, and
grandma today ain't got no house coat.
No. Grandma today might not be wearing a coat at all.
Grandma got on thongs.
Yeah, there's a lot to be done. And one thing that we can't, one of the ways that we've been misdirected is that we've been taught in this country and around the world that the real fight is between black and white.
No.
And it's not. It's you got to follow the money.
Have-nots.
That's exactly right. And our mission, in my view, as black people, is to take all the have-nots and have them for once understand that whatever their differences are, they have the common enemy. That's the haves.
And you would figure Donald Trump would have made this perfectly clear for those whites who have been taken over by hate.
They got to be taught. And we've been taught not to talk to them because they're unreachable. They're incorrigible. I don't believe that. Now, is it going to be easy? But no more difficult than the unlearning that has to be done among our own people.
It ain't difficult when they come down here to Santan and say, hey, where that dope at? Excuse me? And I hit him with the famous, excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you may be one of the few to say, okay, I'm gonna give to say, yeah, I can tell you what a dope is, but first you gotta listen to me. I gotta teach you something. I gotta teach you why you are here looking for it, and not in the place where you live. I gotta teach you why you're here, and then I gotta tell you when you go back to where you live, tell them I'm coming to teach them too. And because I believe that that's our mission. That is our mission. Our
My
mission is
job is to teach the people who have brutally treated my people.
yes. Yes, because
Jesus asked for a lot. I don't know about Jesus.
well, he said he would help you if you
I
follow
gotta
him.
forgive this son of a gun.
He said you have to.
I can't take him out back first and bust his head.
And well, you may have to do certain things to get his attention.
Okay, all right.
Because
Because
Jesus
I
turned.
already busted his head.
Yeah, because Jesus turned over some tables to get attention.
Oh, I thought you say Jesus turned the other cheek.
No. He turned over some tables when they were, he talked, but when they saw him so wrong, he turned over some tables. He was not nonviolent. He was not nonviolent.
You think Jesus would have an ATM in his church? Why you laughing?
Because you're trying to make a point that there are too many pimps in the pulpit. I mean, you make the point that how can you possibly be a representative, be a prophet or a bishop, whatever you call yourself, when you're standing in the pulpit, and the people that surround you aren't deacons and deacons or trustees, but they're bodyguards. And when you leave the church, you're not going to catch a bus like most of your parishioners or most of your congregation. You're going to get into $150,000 or $300,000 Bentley. But yet you tell people that biblically they must tithe and they must sacrifice and they must do all these things so that you can buy a new airplane because you need to get from one coast to the next faster so you can deliver God's message. There's too many pimps in the pulpit. You know it, and I know it, and a lot of people know it.
One
That's
day when
why.
I was lost.
That's why, Donnie, and I mean this with no disparagement to people who regard themselves as Christians, but I regard myself as a follower because the concept of Christianity has been so perverted. It's been so contaminated. It's been so misused. I mean, how can how can Mike Johnson be a Christian when he offered the when he uh, uh, passes and channel makes a way to pass this so-called big beautiful bill as a result of which millions of people, black and white, lose their health care coverage, where millions of people, black and white, are made to suffer so that the rich can get richer. But yet he calls himself a Christian. Well, I can't debate with him what his sense of Christianity is, but I can refuse to be called by the same name that he calls himself because I don't want people who know me to be confused and say, well, you just like Mike Johnson. So I'll say that I'm a follower. I mean, after all, during the days of Jesus, there were no Christians. They were just followers. So that's what I prefer.
You think Jesus would be pushing a Gucci Fiat?
um,
I mean, he would. Come on now. What kind of car would Jesus have? He would have
well,
a reliable car that wouldn't break down, right?
well, he would, and that doesn't mean that you have to go get a junker. That doesn't a clunker or whatever the heck
No,
you call it.
seriously.
But
If you
but
saw
but
Jesus
but
on
but
Ben
to
Moore right now, what would he be pushing?
well, I've say I'll answer this way. There were two things that Jesus that I recall. I'll point you to in the Bible. One, the young man who stopped Jesus on the road and said and wanted to come with him, and he said, "I've followed all the commandments. I honor the mother and father. I've fed the poor. I've done this, and so what must I do to come out?" And Jesus said, "Drop everything you have, strip yourself of everything you have of value, and follow me." And Jesus turned around, and the young boy was gone. And
so
the
that
other,
means if you live out in Owens Mills, give up all of that and come down here and rent a room on McCullough Street.
no, he was making a point. He was making a point that you can't have two gods. You can't honor your possessions and say you honor me at the same time. It's all right to have them, but you can't. You can't. But you got to recognize you have to decide which one is your God, because the other says that it would be easier for a camel to pass through an eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. So, and what's the point? Does that mean that if you're rich you can't go to heaven? No, but it means you got.
If you black, can you sit on some steps in Bolton Hill?
Yes.
No, you can't.
You can't.
If you black and you sit down in Bolton Hill, they will call and the police will help you get to Sandtown faster than a gypsy cab comes to Harlem.
And but I say you can, but the fact is that's not where we should be sitting on steps. We need to be sitting on the steps down in Pigtown. We need to be sitting on the steps of where the poor whites are. Now they might not call the police, they may call the KKK, Grandmaster. But that's because we have to form. When black folk talk about having a coalition with whites, they're talking about the white liberals, the ones who've always told us what's best for us.
Well, I think I would trust a white boy from South Baltimore before I would trust a Jeffrey Epstein or an O'Banion or any of those other people affiliated with Trumpster.
Well, there was a time, Donnie, when it didn't matter. Just like the poorest of the whites was taught to believe that no matter how poor, destitute he was better than any black. There was a time when we were taught that any white, no matter how poor, was better than us. Those things fit. You got. I mean, this was not.
You came up with that one.
You can't underestimate the magnitude of the debauchery, the depravity. You can't underestimate it. That you can't underestimate how far greed will take you.
I remember watching the Donahue show, and they had a white woman on there, and they had her children on there. And then the children disowned her because they found out that the mother was black.
Yeah.
The children disowned their mother because they found out she was black. If your mother's black, what that make you?
I keep that. Remember, I said earlier, we have to be very careful that when we term black, that where we're talking about the color of the skin versus the content of the character, as Martin might say. They disown. They obviously were not learning for the first time that they weren't referring to the mother's color, because if they knew that the minute they could open their eyes, they found out something about what was in their mothers, what was beneath the skin. And what they found out what they found beneath the skin that caused them to declare the blackness of their mother, not her skin color. That's the distinction that we cannot forget. As you used to say, or sometimes do say, I suppose, all skin ain't kin. That people don't understand the gravity of that statement and the importance of that statement. And not only that, but eventually the real test of what's black or not is who's your leader.
I'm glad you said it. That is a great transition. I couldn't have asked for a better one. Who do we like in Baltimore County for the next county executive? And I remind you that it was black people that dragged Johnny Olszewski across the finish line. Johnny Olszewski was in third place. Jim Brochin was in second.
Yeah.
And Vicky Allman, the lady who said she didn't want Baltimore County to become like Baltimore City.
Yeah.
She lost with flying colors.
Yeah.
These people, Johnny Olszewski won by 17 votes. Black people made that happen.
That's for sure.
Trying to get your first black county exec. What are your thoughts? Is he ready? We going with the Jewish boy.
Again, and I'm gonna humor you by accepting, for the sake of discussion, that the person you're referring to is black. Okay, I'm gonna humor you in that. I'm gonna indulge you to that extent.
Yeah, Julian Black.
Yeah. I'm gonna indulge you. I'm gonna indulge you because I don't want to. One, I don't want to have to repeat myself for the third time. So assuming that the person that you referred to is black. I think that there's more than there's a good chance that he will win. That I think there's a 50-50 chance he will win. But if what happened with the redistricting is any indication of the unity of black people and the direction that we should go in, then he's in real trouble. This, the black folk who supported the concept of Woodlawn C, the idea that all black people would be put in these two of the 9 councilmatic districts, and the other 7 would remain in the hands of the white folk, and they look at that as some sort of victory, was so short-sighted. Because they don't understand yet the real coalition that's necessary to overcome the system. Well, it would have been far better to divide the county up based on income than so-called race. That's where the dividing line should have been. That should have been the point of deciding what district you're in. But again, that's who's teaching that, who's advocating that. And people say I'm crazy because I talk that way. I don't really care. All I know is that I'm on the downside of the mountain. So, but there are those of us who've been taught.
Nah, Mr. Bob, that Bible says you're gonna live to 140 years old.
Well, maybe so, but the point is that
what would you do at 140, man?
If I couldn't wipe my own behind, I would be wishing that I wasn't here.
Would you be going out to ship and getting some crabs on Thursdays?
If I could, and if I can, if I'm here, I will. Hope, God willing. But yeah. So I think that Julian has at least a 50-50 chance of winning. He's amassed a great deal of money for the campaign. He has enough money, I think, to successfully run a campaign. The question is he willing to identify the issues in a way that will energize the so-called black community? Is he willing?
I want to ask you about a couple of close contenders. One is Brooke Learman. Do you see her as governor? And then the other one is Zeke Cohen. Do you see him as mayor? Because that's what they look like the jockeying for. Learman got about 0.1% black people on her staff.
I can see Brooke Learman as governor because I believe that she's genuine, and I don't know where the percentage of black people on her staff, but I know that when I've sent.
Oh yeah, she want to be governor. She got to get some black people. She wanted to darken that thing up a bit. That thing is real light.
I know that when I've sent black people to her for jobs, every one of them got one, and they didn't just get any job; they got the job that they wanted. So that's in terms of Zeke Cohen. I think he's a lightweight. I don't have any reason to believe that he has any level of sincerity or even understanding of what the fundamental issues are. Because fundamentally, and I'll say this concept so you can go. I got a call yesterday from a group of people that wanted to start I guess a national black product kind of thing, and the concept was that they would have an organization that manufactured certain goods that would be sold targeted to the black community, toothpaste, whatever the case may be. But it would be just like a Costco. It would be a membership organization. Black people would join it. They would get discount on the products, and the profits that were earned would be used to create businesses within the black community that would be owned by blacks, but on the condition that they pay wages to the employees sufficient so they only had to work 40 hours a week. Because and I love the concept, because ultimately, Donnie, 99 and 9/10% of the people, if they're ever going to achieve financial security, it's going to be as employees. It's not going to be entrepreneurship. It's not going to be because they hit the lotto, and it's certainly not going to be because Trump shared any part of his profits from with them. So we've got to create. So we've got to increase the wages. Unfortunately, the only collective action, the most successful collective action for the wage earner in this country and around the world has been unionization, from which we were largely also excluded. So we've got to find a way to put money in the hands of Black folk, and not by gift or grant, but in a predictable way, which is to say that we know if we do X, we're going to get Y. That means if we work an hour, we're going to get paid X. And until we do that, we can come up with all the gimmicks we want, all the grant programs we want, all the affordable housing programs we want. But if we don't ultimately change the amount of you can't change wealth by giving grants. You can't change wealth by creating a so-called affordable housing. None of that changes. That's the that's rewrapping. In golf, there's a term like this, and this is my last comment. And I play golf as much as I can, not very well, but I play it as much as I can. In most holes, you allow 4 strokes to get the ball in the hole, and if you do it in 4, you're a good golfer. Well, let's say you get it in 9, and then you make a 50-foot putt. We say then that what you've really done is put whipped cream on shit. So we yeah, you made a great putt, but it wasn't for 4, it was for 9. So we keep creating these beautiful packages, but ain't nothing inside. It's the same old crap inside. All we did was rewrap it. And we got to stop that. And we got to stop going for people who tell us that they got a different color wrap and thinking that they're changing the content of the box, because they're not. And they're not intended to. And I'm done.
Okay, I got one more question for you.
All
Do
right.
you know who Ibrahim Traore is?
No.
He's the general in Burkina Faso. Most recently, all of the French-speaking countries, the Francophone countries, are kicking France out of their countries in Africa. And the leader of this effort is Burkina Faso's general, Ibrahim Traore. Now, the French done tried to kill him about 20 times. Their first major project is a train system that runs between Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. And this is particularly relevant because Senegal the last Frenchman just left Senegal like a week ago. So we're seeing an unprecedented move to remove the European from Africa. And speaking of the French, and I say this because my ultimate question to you is, Mr. Bob, considering what the French did to Black people, why do we want to go see the Eiffel Tower? Why, as soon as we get a little bit of money, we want to go to Paris, not knowing that the people in Africa can't wait to get the French out of there? Why do we want to go and speak this romantic language in this filthy city that pretends to know about liberty?
How do we best impress white folk? What is the mechanism by which we show white folk, that we prove to white folk that we're just like them?
Go to Paris.
By showing them that we can spend money.
Oh, $1,500 for a Louis bag.
That's right. Now we don't start, and they say, yes, you're just like me. I accept you for it. We do it, but you over your credit card limit. You busted. But yet we gladly accept you into the store, because we're going to take what we give to you. We're going to get it right back anyway. We're misguided, and I accept that, and because none of us is perfect, Donnie. I mean, by grace, all of us living today are different than what we used to be, and hopefully different in a positive and a better way. So I don't criticize, but the fact, and nor am I surprised. You know, if you wanted to buy that hoopty Ford, you're not going to go. And where you going to get buy it from from a black manufacturer? There is none. Now you might find a black dealership somewhere, but you're not going. There's no black companies that manufacture Fords that I know of. There's no black companies that manufacture any vehicle in this country that I know of. That, which is not to say that there weren't, because because that history was also erased, just like the black folk who invented the helicopter, or the black folk who were the first to do many things that we'll never know about because the history was erased. But today, there is not a single manufacturer of an automobile in this country that a company that I believe is owned by blacks. If I'm wrong, somebody send a chat in and tell me where to go look for it, and I humbly apologize.
Mr. Bob, thank you for joining us this morning. How can people get in touch with you?
410-456-8606. Don't leave a message. I don't listen. If I see a number that I don't recognize it, I will call you back.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Good morning, world.
Goodbye.